Why hello there, and welcome to another tank review. I'm Corny Swiss, and today I'll be looking at the SU-100Y, the Rank 3, 5.3 battle rating Soviet tank destroyer. Now, as with all reviews, if you want to see a specific portion of this review, the various parts are timestamped down below, so feel free to check those out. But if you want to hear the in-garage portion of this review, let's get started. So the SU-100Y is a one-off project. Only one was built, and it was a prototype. And it never saw, well, it never saw real prolonged service. It was pressed into service during the battle in and around Moscow during the Second World War, but it never really made it out of the prototype stage. But the prototype did survive and is now in a museum. What's unique about the SU-100Y? Its overall design purpose was to basically to be a self-propelled gun that could also serve a more utility role in recovering tanks, laying bridges, for example, just doing all types of utility things in addition to being a really powerful tank destroyer. It's mounted with a 130mm naval gun because the Russians wanted to try and mount high-velocity, large-caliber guns onto their self-propelled guns and tank destroyers to help bust fortifications and things like that. Which ultimately, I guess, an SU-152 does the job. It's just a big howitzer, but this is the SU-100Y, and it has a really big gun. So let's talk about the vehicle. Like I said, rank 3, 5.3 battle rating. Premium, so you do get a better reward, and it's a 64-ton tank with 850 horsepower at 1850 RPM, max speed of 32 kilometers per hour, and I think it goes without saying this thing is not very fast. In a straight line it's okay, but most of the time it's not going to get anywhere in a hurry, and it really doesn't turn well in reverse or in forward gears. You have to get the engine up a little bit to get some type of decent turn, but you'll see in the replays that this thing does not want to turn. Maximum inclination 41 degrees, that's pretty standard. Turret rotation speed 7 degrees a second, so the gun will traverse at 7 degrees a second, which is fine. Vertical guidance 5 degrees of gun depression, 15 degrees of elevation. Doesn't really mean a lot. This tank is tall, so gun depression is useful, but it's fine. The gun depression is fine. The gun elevation is lower than normal, but it's still within acceptable margins. And then armor, 60 millimeters all around according to the stat sheet. Let's take a closer look. Alright, so we open up the armor model, and it pretty much confirms that this tank is in fact 60 millimeters of armor all the way around. 360 armor, folks. Has this 25 millimeter extra plate here on top of the 60 millimeter hull and turret casement. Now, the thing to note about 60 millimeters is from the front, just square up, let's get it lined up, there we go. This is 78.5 millimeters, this is 90.8 millimeters, so the turret is actually not that bad from the front because it has this big gun mantlet here, all these different layers, which is nice. As you can see, there's plenty of overlap here. There's a hole, you can see it outlined in the lighter red there in the middle, but that's also covered up by a 50 millimeter gun mantlet, and you have all kinds of armor layers. So it's overall the front of the turret of the casement on this thing isn't bad for its tier. 90 millimeters doesn't really get the job done all the time, but it can sometimes. The hull, I mean, it's sloped back, so you have that advantage, and this upper glacis here is fine, but this part is not. That's no good. And even the front of the casement generally doesn't get the job done. Lower plate, still 60 millimeters. It's sloped down. Generally, if you can penetrate, I mean, this is technically thicker thanks to sloping, so shooting here is the best move, right in this area. From the side, it's still 60 millimeters, but it's totally flat, so it's basically 60 millimeters. From the rear, 60 millimeters as well, and it's basically flat as well. So really from the front is the only type of angled surface, and it's really not tremendously well angled to start with. So in terms of overall protection, this thing isn't that great, but this thing the SU-100Y really isn't meant to be super close to the action, and part of the reason is just the turning and also the reload of the gun, 22.5 seconds with a decent crew. So those are some things to keep in mind. I have run into situations where this tank's durability has been able to shine through, but generally it's small caliber guns or lower tier guns shooting at me, not like short barreled guns, and maybe just improper ammunition choices, I don't know. But a lot of times Tigers can penetrate this fairly easily. Panzer IV F2s can. There's lots of different tanks that can cause you problems, but this tank is all about the gun, the hit first capabilities, and because if you hit someone, they're going to die, as you see in the replays. But let's look at the gun, shall we? Now, the SU-100Y comes only, it's obviously premium, so this is all given to you. It only has 2 shells. APC-BC, which is a 34 kilogram shell, 870 meters per second muzzle velocity, and it has 215 millimeters penetration at 10 meters, 200 at 500, 152 at 1500, and 142 at 2000 meters. All that means is that this thing will penetrate just about everything it sees at well over normal combat ranges. So this shell is really, really good at the 5.3 battle rating, for sure. And this is all I fire from this tank. The HE has a time and place, but it's sub 152 caliber, so I generally hold it in less regard than 152 millimeter HE shells. And quite frankly, why would you use this shell when you have this one available? Because this one is going to penetrate the target, and when it penetrates the target, it's going to do tons of damage because it's a really big shell. I mean, 130 millimeter, the Jagdtiger's gun's 128 millimeters. Granted, this thing is also as big as a Jagdtiger with less armor, so there you go. But it's also at 1.7 battle rating lower, so there you also go. But this HE shell is good for AAA trucks and very lightly armored tanks, but generally just if this shell is effective, this one is too, kind of. I generally just fire this all day long and reap the rewards. So that's pretty much what you need to know about the ammunition choices. And the gun is what this thing's about, right? Like I said, 22.5 second reload. You carry 30 rounds of ammunition. Overall, it's just a very solid gun that's built to destroy tanks. And it's a very, very effective gun at doing that. So let's look at the X-ray, shall we? Now, you'll notice that there's 6 crew. All right, you have a machine gunner. I will point out there are no machine guns on this tank. It is a 130 millimeter naval gun, and that's it. A driver, you have a gunner or aimer for some reason, you have a commander, and then you have 2 loaders back here. Now, something you will note is that the cannon breech is literally the size of the tank. Generally, when you get penetrated, the cannon breech takes damage. And when the cannon breech takes damage, you can't fire the gun or the gun will explode. So that's unfortunate. So that's kind of awkward with this tank. Back half of the tank is obviously fuel tanks, radiator, engine. Well, I say that. Fuel tanks are in the bottom side of the casement, but you have a lot of flammable stuff here, a lot of flammable stuff here. Ammo is dispersed in the casement, not really below the hull line. Got these, which are kind of down there, but generally in the back half of the casement. A lot of times, if you penetrate the side of this casement anywhere behind the cannon breech, you will cause some serious problems for this tank. But from the front, probably the left side of the casement is probably where you want to be shooting, because you'll hit the commander, the loader. There's some ammo over here. If you're looking to disable, you can hit over here and you hit the gunner. You can hit down here, hit the driver. You'll get this loader as well. So there's lots of options when engaging this tank. Now, like I said previously, because the armor profile isn't tremendous on this tank, it's fine, it's appropriate, but it's not great. So you generally can't rely on your armor saving you. So generally you want to be at maybe medium range or just being sneaky. And this tank seems to suffer from, well, not suffer, benefit from kind of, like, people don't realize it's there. It's so big and boxy and weird that sometimes people just don't see you. for some dumb reason. But you'll see in one of the replays what I mean. But anyway, as an overview, this tank is all about the gun. The armor is okay, but not great. It'll save you sometimes, but generally not very often. But the gun, whatever it hits, it will destroy. There isn't a target you can hit with this gun that you can't destroy. And the AP shell is generally the move. It's not very maneuverable, can't turn very well, doesn't go very fast in reverse, doesn't go very fast forward, but it carries this gun around and it wastes enemy tanks. So, enough talking. Let's jump into the replay, shall we? Alright, so this first replay is a little bit of an older one. You know how I said that I missed my 11th shot? This happens to be my 11th shot. Yeah, I missed that one. But, just disclaimer, this was recorded on my old machine, so the video quality isn't the same as the second replay, but this is a clip I'd been hanging on to for a while, so I wanted to use it in the review. But in this replay, I'm going to be focusing on being kind of stealthy a little bit. As stealthy as you can be in a tank the size of a Yak Tiger. But my goal is to kind of hang out over here and nail like unsuspecting tigers and things like that. And a little trick you're going to notice me do is that whenever I'm in a situation with a lot of vegetation, my first instinct is to bring up my binoculars, line up the shot, and then switch to my scope. Lined it up, bam. And like I said, this gun will penetrate everything you shoot at. Front of a tiger, all day. That guy stands no chance. Now this guy, I thought was alive. He just got knocked out there. But I'm going to reload. And just to be sure, gave him one, but he was already dead. But basically my tactic in this replay is to be a very supportive tank. I'm not leading the charge. I don't want to take hits. The best way to survive in any type of game is to not take damage. And it's very true in War Thunder, where taking damage can often be pretty bad. A lot of times if you get hit and you take some type of damage, you're likely to be knocked out relatively soon after. So in tanks that don't want to get hit but like doing the hitting, the best move is to kind of hang back, let other people go forward, and then show up to provide that critical backup. You know, kind of give that extra caliber gun to the engagement. Now I do know there's some type of panther up there, but I can't really see where. I'm trying to figure out a way where I can get my gun down on that guy there, but gun depression and the tank just is slightly too short for this position. Now shooting to across to this position is pretty solid for me. Most of my tank is covered. However, the enemy, the panther that's over there, is pretty well dug in. I can't really see him. So I'm going to back up, side scrape a little bit. Kind of. It's difficult to side scrape in tank destroyers, let's say that. But my team is generally moving up. I'm sort of covering their advance. Once they reach sort of a safe area, I'm going to move forward and try and help kind of pin the enemy team down, provide that extra firepower, and eliminate them. See, we have a nice little firing line going here. Here we go. That's an enemy. I'll have you now. It's a lot like KV-2, except this tank penetrates and destroys everything. The KV-2 doesn't really penetrate, it just breaks everything when it hits it. I can't decide which is more reliable, because, for example, the side of a Tiger is actually really difficult to deal with in a 152mm howitzer. The front is actually not that hard, because you just slap it in the turret face and they blow up every time. But from the side, less so. The advantages of this tank and this gun is from the front, they die. They actually die very well. From the sides, they die even better. So, what's the downside? And I did take a hit there, but I was able to knock that guy out. And I'm not sure I'm going to be able to reload in time for this guy. But we're going to have a go. Loader Steve and Loader Jim are furiously cranking away. Got him. There you go. Bombs incoming. Right at the end. But this is a very old replay. This was a relatively early game. So obviously it looks a little different, and I have a new computer now, so it's going to be different. But I still wanted to show that replay. And without further ado, let's move on to the next replay. So here we are in another realistic battle, this time on Normandy rather than jungle. And this is an interesting map for the box tank. I don't really want to go into the city, but the cap circle says I need to go in the city. I have a very large caliber gun, and I can really help my team bust out difficult targets. Myself and a KV-2 are advancing along the seawall here, and kind of my plan is to take up a position around this area, maybe a little farther forward, and just control these two streets. Anything that comes around or comes in this area, I want to hit in the face. This also can give me an avenue towards the cap circle and allow me to support our team as we try and push in there. The enemy are already in the cap and are capping. And this KV-2 is trying to do something about it, but you'll notice he's actually going to take a hit from down the road here, so that's going to alert me to the fact that there are enemies down that way. I don't believe it happens yet, but very soon he'll take a hit and I'll be able to see kind of the trajectory. But I'm moving up to kind of, oh, there it was. It didn't hit him, it hit the post there. But that alerts me that there's someone down there. Now their reload is going to be quick enough, but he fired, he didn't do any damage to me. I fired and threw a post, penetrated the front of his tank and knocked him out. Now there's someone else down there, right there. You saw that muzzle flash. So I'm going to continue to back up. And basically myself and this KV-2 are just, we're basically going to hold this intersection and try and support our guys as they push into the cap circle. The only issue is going to be this KV-2 is starting to take fire, so I really need to be in a position to support him, but I am kind of hanging out in the breeze because I know there's enemies down that road, but I'm not really in a position to engage them. However, they could very easily find a line of sight on me. But I am waiting on that corner because there was some machine gun fire or just fire in general coming down that way, and oop, I just took a hit from something. And he is not going to back up in time around that corner. That was a Sherman Jumbo, the short-barreled version, and I penetrated the front of his tank at heavy angle with this AP shell. That should kind of tell you how effective this shell can be. But he's dead. I'm going to move forward to get out of the artillery fire. And at this point, I'm going to kind of make a decision that we really need to get in this cap circle. So I'm going to start trying to clear it. I'm hoping that the KV-2 is going to draw any fire that come from down the road. So I want to move across this street into the cover of the church and then assist in the push to decap this zone. Kind of taking a peek-see, looking, making sure that no one's there. Ooh, incoming bombs. We really need to move. Taking another look, but now I'm going to push around to try and get behind this church. I just saw a shell fly across the screen, so I know someone's over there, and it'd be nice if I can clear this corner and just pop them so that my allies don't have to deal with that. Going to come around this corner, and one of the first things I'm going to spot is a Chaffee. Now that Chaffee is already dead. That shot would have killed him though. So As far as I can tell, it's relatively safe. There seems to be some other tank down that way, but I'm reloading, and my allies have moved into the cap circle. So we're in a much better position now. And people are just shelling this poor Chaffee. He's dead, guys. Don't worry. I wish this tank had a machine gun, because right there I would have just sprayed him a little bit just to make sure, but it doesn't, and I know he's dead because I shot him. But at this point, once the cap circle is secured, I'm basically going to keep moving in this direction and move towards that intersection to hopefully kind of cut off the enemy and provide support for the rest of the team as we kind of clean out the city and push them back into their cap circles. At this point, though, the deficiencies of the box tank kind of become apparent. This isn't a tank that can move well through a city. It moves in straight lines. It doesn't move in angles and curves. It really needs to kind of post up somewhere and just engage targets. Which is why I'm going to decide to push across to the outermost street. Primarily because it's long and I know it's a very gentle curve, so I know I'll have a good opportunity to set up some shots. This SU-122 is kind of getting in my way, but that's alright. We're just going to continue pushing around, and we're going to look for some enemy tanks. See what I mean? This is a very gentle curve. This is something I can manage in this tank. Very sharp corners are not this tank's friend. I'm going to come down here, and I'm actually going to spot an enemy Sherman of some type. And this is kind of an example of sometimes people just don't notice this tank. And they really should. It's a very powerful tank. Oh, there he goes. Now granted, this is a difficult situation for him to actually notice me, but also you can see just how slow this thing is to turn. He's going to get away. He doesn't even know I'm here, but he's slowly escaping me. He's moving into the cap, so he's going to the cap. I know that's where he's going, so I'll just chase him around and then pop a shell into the back of his turret and call it a day. But I also spot, oh look, a AAA. Put a shell in. Unfortunately, it didn't knock him out, but that's primarily because I penetrated the engine block rather than the crew compartment where I really should have shot him. But he burns up, and now I'm going to continue pushing around this corner to try and get after this Sherman who's sitting in the cap circle. He's not someone we want to have around because while he's in the cap circle, that's obviously not the best for us. There he is. He doesn't know I'm here. Line up the shell. Bam. Right through the side of the turret. Guaranteed destruction with this gun. So now it's just a matter of Recat taking the zone and then attempting to find more tanks to kill. Artillery coming in. I can't tell if it's friendly or not, but it really doesn't matter. I want to cap the zone and get out of here as quick as possible in case planes are in the air. Very close call there. Gonna turn myself to face towards the enemy's cap because I know my flanks are relatively secure thanks to my teammates. Move to the edge of the cap circle to have a clear line of fire so I can shoot around this Panther wreck there. And we're gonna cap the zone without incident, which is always nice. And now I'm actually gonna choose to take the same route because it was so successful the first time. And when you have success at something, it's good to try it again. Sometimes you get lucky and you have success with something you really shouldn't have. But occasionally you have success, and when you go test it scientifically and do it multiple times and continue to have success, that can indicate that it's a decent strategy. So this is the science portion. I'm going to push along this road again. However, I am going to decide to take a little bit of a more wider route eventually, just to kind of push towards their spawn, because that's where they're going to be. I know the flanks are secure. I know the city is secure as well. So there's not a huge reason to be here. And also the game is ending, so I want to go to where the enemy are most likely to be, and that happens to be their cap circle. Or not their cap circle, their spawn. Oh, hello. Line up the shot. Bam. Got him right before the game ended. Surprise. But anyway, that was a game in the box tank. Let's move on to the final opinion, shall we? Alright, so opinion time. What do I think of the SU-100Y? I'll start off by saying that for the cost of this tank, I think this tank is kind of worth it. And it's not necessarily worth it because, in my opinion, it's not like a great tank. However, it is a very fun tank. It's kind of like the KV-2 in a sense. I don't think the KV-2 is a particularly good tank, primarily because the turret traverse is so slow, the reload's so slow. Sure, you know, if whatever you hit is going to explode, but the problem is it sometimes can be difficult to hit things with that gun, just because of, you know, the shell velocity and things like that. But it's a very fun tank. SU-100Y kind of fits into that same mold for me. However, it is a better tank than the KV-2, primarily because the gun is just generally easier to use with, you know, a good reload. So, yeah, it does suffer from the whole thing about being a tank destroyer and not having a turret, but I think it's a fun tank. I think it's something you have to get a little used to. It feels like it's built out of pure stellinium, but a lot of times it's not. So you need to kind of be a little bit more cautious because you aren't going to be able to react well to situations just because you can't turn very well and things like that. But once you get someone in your sights, they're done. They're toast. See you later. Call back again. Not today. Because this thing just, whatever you hit with this gun, explodes. When I first started playing this, my first 10 shells I fired knocked out tanks. And then the 11th I missed. You know, usually if you hit something, they die. And there's no questions about it. I think the few times I've hit things and it didn't die, it's because either I was dumb or I shot it into the engine block and the engine block took all the brunt of the damage, but they got lit on fire and caused some serious problems for them. This tank is very potent. And if you're thinking about picking up this tank, if you know, maybe to grind some stuff, or just because you like the look of it, or you just want to roll around in just something kind of derpy, this is the tank for you. I think it's fun. It's a quality premium, and I'm kind of glad this is a premium because it's a one-off machine. It was a prototype. It kind of fits sort of the premium mold. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the SU-100Y. I think it's worth it if you're looking maybe to help you grind the mid tiers, or just to troll around and be kind of derpy. But anyway, I want to thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions for future reviews, the T10 is coming. Don't worry, I have it. I'm working on it. But yeah, I'll be more than happy to address those in the comment section. And as always, I've been Corny Swiss, and I'll see you next time.